Present.
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 All right, thank you. Mr. Bartle, since this is your last board meeting, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely.
Okay, please stand.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda, or do I have any changes that you would like to propose? Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have an agenda. All right, that brings us to our call to the public. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38431, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for a future agenda. The board requests that all comments be limited to 3 minutes or less, and that the public refrain from the use of speech of language that is offensive or inappropriate, pursuant to board policy KFA. I only have one speaker card, and that would be Mr. Gary Miller. Come on up.
Hello, I'm Dr. Gary Miller. I would first just like to express my gratitude for an opportunity to serve on the board. I would like to thank Scott for your commitment to the community, and you've done a lot of great things for the school board. I'd like to congratulate Patty and Anne-Marie on your successful election, and I really look forward to work with a wonderful team. So I understand January 14th is our swear-in, and so I'm really looking forward to that, and just really grateful to have this opportunity to work with a bunch of great people. And during my campaign, I had the opportunity to, with Dr. Chestnut, go around to several schools and see a lot of the great things going on in this school. And I would like to, and have been, sharing this with our community about all the good things. So I think that our culture and our traditions are changing, and I'm seeing a lot of great things happening in the school. So I definitely would thank you all for, for your endeavors and making that happen. So with that, I appreciate that and hope everybody have a great holiday, and best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Is there anybody else who would like to come up to call to the public before we move on? No? Not Jenny? All right, that takes us to our superintendent's report. Dr. Chestnut.
We have presentations tonight. Rotary Students of the Month, Alma Farrell, is in charge of that. So Alma, come on up and turn it over to you.
Alma, can you take the microphone out of it's a handheld mic? There we go. Okay. That way you can move around if you need to.
Dr. Chestnut, members of the board, on behalf of Rotary, would like to thank you again for allowing us to do the student recognition. We feel it's very important to recognize students in our community, and we're very thrilled that you allow us this opportunity. To all of you students who are in the public who have been chosen to be the November Rotary Students of the Month, congratulations. I want to tell you that Rotary has a 4-way test, and this is the 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? And third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And the last, will it be beneficial to all concerned? This information is very important for you because when you, as a Rotary Student of the Month, you're eligible for a scholarship that we have available in May. And this 4-way test is very important for you. So you will get a magnet with these 4 items. So make sure that you keep it on your refrigerator so that you know what it stands for, and you can look it up on the internet. That's a good thing to look up and see what it means. I would like to acknowledge the parents and teachers and administrators who are here of these students. Thank you for supporting your child and your students in their education. For Cabot, we have Emily Richard, and her parents are Veronica and Kurt Reichard. Is it Reichard? Okay, thank you. For Maricopa Wells Middle School, we have Evan Grace, and his mother, Mary Grace, is present. For Desert Winds Middle School, we have Anna Hoops, and her parents are Aaron and James Hoops. Thank you for being here. I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Glover, Mr. Abel, Mrs. Myers, Ms. Sokolitz, I know I didn't say that right, Mrs. Schaefer, and Mrs. Rusinello for their involvement in selecting these students. Okay, the first student of the month that we have is a Cabot student. She is, Emily, if you could come forward. She's a senior at Maricopa High School, and she is also a Cabot student. She's the daughter, as I said, of Veronica and Kurt Reichard, and Mr. Glover and the staff nominated her for this honor. She is reported to be an outstanding student with excellent work ethic and attitude in helping others. It's reported to Rotary that she is a grade 12 medical assisting 2 student and is involved in many activities. At Maricopa High School, she's part of DECA, and her Cabot activities include being involved with the Health Occupation Students of America, better known as HOSA. And she serves as a HOSA chapter officer, and she has attended all of the business meetings. She's also a recruiter and has attended the Give a Heck event in Apache Junction as a medical assistant student, helping bag food and giving free vital signs to homeless citizens. It's also reported to Rotary that she is very active in community activities, such as volunteering at the Salsa Festival. Her career is to attend the University of Phoenix to major in nursing, working as a medical assistant while she's attending college and eventually becoming a nurse practitioner. Good luck to you, Emily, in meeting all of your goals. If you could just wait, Emily, if you could just wait right here. Our next student present is Evan Grace. If he could come forward. Congratulations, Evan. Evan is an 8th grader at Maricopa Wells Middle School, and he's the son of Mary and Donald Grace. Mr. Abel and his staff have nominated him for this award. Mr. Abel reports to us that he's an outstanding student with a 3.4 GPA, and he's in his 3rd year as a 20+1 student, and he's also a member of the Maricopa Wells Middle School soccer team. His citizenship is outstanding and evidenced by his volunteer activities at school and in the community. He's a member of the National Junior Honor Society and has been involved in the Maricopa Relay for Life. It's also reported that he has initiated the sock drive for the Blue Star Mothers of Maricopa, and he also serves on the Maricopa City Youth Council. In his extra time, he volunteers in assisting the students in our life skills classes. Mr. Abel says he's a giver, and Maricopa Wells appreciates this and all the efforts that he does at Maricopa Wells and in our community. Mr. Abel said he was honored to be able to nominate such an awesome student for this award. As he says, his big smile and willingness to work and help others is a wonderful asset to Maricopa Wells students and staff. They are very proud of you. Congratulations, Evan. Our next student, Anna Hoops, if you could come forward. Congratulations. Anna Hoops is an 8th grade student at Desert Winds Middle School, and she is the daughter of Aaron and James Hoops. She's been nominated for this award, and her teacher reports that Anna is the type of student every teacher hopes to have in their class. She reports not only that does she excel in each subject area within the blended learning program, but she goes above and beyond teacher expectations for a student. Her work ethic is an inspiration for the other students in the class. It's reported that she often assists students in building a true learning environment. She's a member of the 21st Century Sewing Club, where she uses her talent and time to create gifts for siblings and family members. Her artistic talent shows through in all assignments and is proudly displayed in the classroom. She is a true example of Tiger Pride. Congratulations. We have a couple other students who weren't able to come tonight, and so we'll hold them over for January to see if they're able to come. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to our Rotary Students of the Month. You can see Evan's a busy person. He came in his soccer uniform. Samantha Dugan, I don't see her tonight. A couple things to report on. On November 21st, we had energy performance contract interviews, and we haven't talked about this a lot, but Mr. Roush has taken the lead on this project. We've been working on this for maybe almost a year, looking at energy performance savings that we could garner for the school district. And we've had a couple small projects like that over the last couple of years that have worked out well, and so we're looking at expanding this to the other 7 buildings, I believe it is, 7 schools that don't have energy performance solution in place. I participated in the interviews. We had a big interview team, and a number of our staff members were on there, representatives from the maintenance department and some outside consultants and that kind of thing. So we'll be bringing back more information on this, but you know, I hear a lot from community members that we really need to continue to look at this as a cost savings measure for the school district, and we will continue to do that. When we have more information, we'll be bringing it, but we are working on it, and I want to thank Mr. Roush for taking the lead on that. Last Friday on December 5th, the Maricopa Wells Middle School volleyball team participated in the Auction Toy Drive volleyball tournament. And as I understand it, it was actually a toy or blanket drive tournament. So for teams to enter, they didn't pay any money like you normally do. You had to bring either toys or blankets. And I understand our girls brought blankets. And then they participated in the tournament, but it was also a co-ed tournament, so they had to recruit their fathers. So I guess it was quite an event, and they won on Friday night, and Mr. Abel pointed out that that was the night that he played, I believe, because he was not able to play on Saturday, and then the team started losing. Isn't that correct, Mr. Abel? Something along those lines. Yeah. So it was a great thing for the girls to be involved in, and I think they had a lot of fun doing that. Big news, that is this Friday on the 12th, bonus checks will be delivered to all staff employed 1 year or more in MUSD, thanks to the generous gift from the Auction Indian community. And we are in the 2nd year of that grant, and we're really pleased to be able to do that. And it was a very popular item last year, and will be again this year. So I know the staff is looking forward to that. The idea behind this was that we wanted to reward our staff for sticking with us in the years when we couldn't give a raise. And so if you've been here for 1 year or more, you qualify. And it is on a tiered basis. There's a lower payment for 1 year. a little higher payment for 2 or 3 years, and then if you're here 4 years or more, you get a little higher payment. But it's just a nice way to say thank you to our staff, and at a time of year when most people are appreciative to have a little extra spending money. And that is all I have at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Chestnut. It brings us to our governing board member reports. Anybody have anything?
Well, I did attend the legislative conference with Dr. Chestnut last month. Again, very informative.
Speak into your microphone.
Very informative, a lot of things coming up. At that time, they hadn't had all the committees selected for the House and Senate Education. Those have now been selected. It's going to be an interesting year, and we're really going to need our community members, as well as our staff members, to be advocates for public education, and we're going to really have to push this through. So I'm sure that all of us up here will be letting you guys know as these issues are coming about and asking for your help, and I hope that you'll be able to help us out with emails and phone calls and letters.
Anything, Anna Marie? Mr. Bartle? No? Okay. Well, that's a good lead-in. Thursday, I will be presenting a legislative question and answer with some of our representatives at the Arizona School Board Association annual conference. So that's 2:30 on Thursday. I'm sure I'll see some smiling faces in the audience. So I wanted to let you know about that because the legislative process is very important. A couple of other things. The high school band has their performance this Thursday at the Performing Arts Center at 7 o'clock. And I want to remind everyone that our winter break is December 22nd to January 2nd. And during this holiday Christmas season, Maricopa has several homeless students. Currently, we have about 81 homeless students in our district. So the district office in the main lobby has what we call a star tree, and there are still about 15 stars on that tree. I was just there yesterday. So if there's anybody who doesn't have a special child or has a little extra money in their pocket, if you wouldn't mind going by and getting one of those stars, and making a child's, and they're asking for very humble things. So it's a great way to be able to give back, so I wanted to remind you of that. And January 14th will be our next board meeting. We don't have any more until then, so I want everyone to remember that. And on that 14th at 6 o'clock, we will be swearing in our new board members. We have 3 that were, they'll be new for 2015. So I wanted to invite everybody, the public, to come out to that, if you would, and then we'll go right into our first board meeting of the year at 6:30. And then the other thing, Mr. Bartle, since this is your last meeting, we really have to make it difficult on you. So if you will come to the front, I have something to give you. Mr. Bartle, we as a board are very appreciative, and as a school district, of everything that you've done for us. You've set the bar high. You've led us into a great, great school year, and we're going upward, and I want to appreciate and tell you thank you for all that you've done for the school district. So this is on behalf of everybody. So there's, and that'll be on your office desk, right?
This could be my office desk.
So the inscription says Scott Bartle, MUSD Governing Board Member, Recognition, Exemplary Service. So do you want to get all the board in here?
Sure.
Well, you want to here, Dr. Chestnut, do you mind?
Oh, sure.
Is that okay? We can start swinging to that. So the other thing we did as all the board, and you can stay here, we know that we won't see you at board meetings anymore, and we're really concerned that you won't be eating. We know that the only time you eat is when you come to board meetings.
Thanks to Rotary.
I know. So we were worried about that. So we put together some dinner certificates for you to make sure that you were going to eat.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. You're awesome. We'll miss you. Did we embarrass you enough?
Yes.
Okay, good. Then we have succeeded. All right, thank you for indulging us. All right, that brings us to our information items. Work study, Dr. Chestnut.
As you know, our tradition is to hear from each school during the course of the school year. And actually, our charter documents require that. Even though only 6 of our 9 schools are officially charters, we want to hear from every school. And so the school that was the bravest signed up for the very first presentation was Maricopa High School. So I'd like to introduce June Salaya, principal of Maricopa High School.
Good evening, President Anderson, members of the board, Superintendent Chestnut, Mr. Bartle. I will miss answering your questions, but you can always come to the school and ask. Thank you for this opportunity this evening to allow us to talk to you about Maricopa High School and our community. And we are a proudly diverse community. We'll show you that first, and then talk to you a little bit more about our academic focus, as well as our goals for our English and math student achievement. So if you can see, you have the papers in front of you, and on the chart, we are a proudly diverse school, and to date, as of this printing of this, we are at 1,784, and I think I pulled that number a couple weeks ago, and I think there were about 10 new enrollments since then. It's interesting, kids are coming from all over the country and moving to Maricopa, so I think you're going to see an increase in your city population here pretty quick, too. Okay. In reference to our academic focus, we are a college and career preparatory academy. Okay, and within that academic focus, we developed some goals that we wanted to achieve that we thought were very, very important for us. And by the end of September, we expect to develop 2 community partnerships. We have already done so with University of Arizona and the city of Maricopa. We had a wonderful opportunity to take kids down to U of A to visit an engineering program down there with the cooperation of the city of Maricopa. They were very, very nice to help us out with that, and the kids had a wonderful time. Also, by August, this year in August, we added some AP courses. We added AP Studio Art, in addition to AP World History, as well as increasing the number of AP sections. So our kids that are coming into our community are taking advantage of our advanced placement courses. And as I've said many, many times before, the only thing missing is the kids. If they come in and they request the courses, we fill the classes. So I hope they'll continue to request that. Also by September, all the teachers so far have been trained in thinking maps. It's been kind of fun to go in classrooms and hear people saying things like double bubble, tree map, and they've got all kinds of graphic organizers going with that. It's really helping them out. And so it's a great tool for teachers to use in their classroom. And in addition to that, by the end of May, the College and Career Center will have provided various college tours. So far, we've been to the University of Arizona. They've also been to Northern Arizona University. We have one scheduled with GCU, ASU, and hopefully another one for U of A. I'm just going to make a plug because I'm a wildcat. Okay? Right? Thank you. Okay, moving on. I am going to introduce to you Rachel Tucker, who's our academic coach, as well as Morgan Dalton, who is our math teacher, and they're going to talk to you about the math goals and how we came up with these goals.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Rachel Tucker, as Ms. Salaya said, and I'm the secondary math coach. And as a department, the math department and the administrative team at the high school, we came together to look at data, looking at last year's Ames data and last year's post-test data from Galileo to determine what our goal would be to best meet our needs for this year for our students. And we determined that our goal will be by May 2015, 100% of our students at Maricopa High School will meet their expected growth as measured by our pre-test to our post-test. And we have Morgan Dalton here, our high school math teacher, who's going to go over the standards that we chose to focus on.
Good evening. I I'm going to let you know that the standards we chose to focus on are relevant across all grade levels and can be applied in all content areas. And these concepts include structures of expressions, rates of change, volume, and proportional relationships. And now I will introduce Krista Cox, our assistant principal in charge of curriculum and instruction.
Good evening. All right, so a couple of things that I just wanted to go over. The first thing is our math department got together and we discussed as a math department what can we do in the classrooms as kind of our action plan as a math team. And they went through a handful of things, and it kind of started with Galileo, which is what we use for our testing. And they started running reports and looking at any at-risk standards, anything that's coming up as kind of being below where it should be. So that was where we started. That then indicated where we need to be reteaching in the classrooms across the board, all the standards from the pretest and then with the benchmarks as well. With that, we then have our after-school tutoring. We're using our professional development like Kagan structures to kind of engage our small groups and kind of just focus the way that we're teaching a little bit differently to really hit on these standards that need more of a focus. And then what we did from there was the math teachers created mini like bell works and kind of like little mini problems to get all the teachers on campus involved so that we're all contributing to the math goal, not just our math teachers. So with those problems, it kind of goes into our school-wide action plan. And this is where every teacher on campus is involved. The two areas that we're focusing on as a campus are our informational texts and our real-world math problems. So when students go to college or even when they take the AIMS or whatever the standardized test happens to be, 70% of that is informational text. So we have to really up that exposure. So we're starting to ask all of our teachers to expose them to these informational texts, but by pulling math concepts from that. So looking at maps or analyzing data or anything that has to do with graphs or data, anything that can be considered mathematical concept. And then that kind of ties into the real world math problems. So we're asking all of our teachers to take their content and come up with these real world problems and how do you solve them? Because as we know, problem solving is kind of where a lot of these standards that Morgan talked about are low. So that's kind of where we are as a school for math. And then to kind of transition over into our reading goals, I would like to introduce our honors and AP lead, Miss Jen Miller.
Good evening. So for our reading goals this year, we decided that our ultimate goal is for all of our students to make 100% of their growth as measured by the Galileo pretest to their post-test. And then we started as a department to talk about how we were going to do that. And so by breaking down the data for our AIMS testing as well as for our Galileo benchmark tests and pre and post test, we found the three areas that we thought were our students' biggest needs. And they are reading informational text standards 1, 2, and 4. Specifically, those are identifying main ideas in a text, supporting evidence with claims from the text, supporting claims with evidence from the text, and determining the meaning of words. And we decided that we were going to focus on that not only in our English classrooms, but kind of across campus, and we were going to measure that as growth from the first benchmark to the fourth benchmark. And I would like to introduce you to the English Department Chair, Ms. Aiden Balt.
Good evening. I'm going to go over our reading action plan with you, and as was said before, we're focusing on identifying main idea, citing textual evidence, and determining the meaning of words. So I'm just going to go over some specific strategies that we're using for each of those three skills. So beginning with main idea, the first strategy that we're really utilizing in our English classes are thinking maps. Particularly the tree map and making sure that we're implementing the frame of reference, which is a huge piece for both main idea and citing textual evidence, actually. Another strategy that we're using would be like reenacting or rewriting portions of the text, which helps us to see that the students can showcase their understanding of main idea regardless of a genre, style, or time period. For citing textual evidence, the strategies that we're using are introducing passages and then having students identify the claim. We're talking about claim all the time, almost every day. The second strategy that we're using is scaffolding, and an example of that would be for a particular lesson, A teacher would provide the students with a claim, and then the students would write justifications for that claim. Then in a lesson that comes after the one where the teacher introduced the claims, you would flip-flop essentially. So the teacher would provide the evidence and the students would provide the claim. So building on those skills from lesson to lesson. For determining the meaning of words, we're focusing on vocabulary and diction through rhetorical analysis. And rhetorical analysis is a huge part of our Arizona standards. And so that's another thing that we're talking about all the time. We're using close notes when we're talking about meaning of words. That forces the students to use paraphrasing to fill in things that have been removed from the notes. And we're also implementing a rhetorical analysis formative at each grade level that has an increased complexity from 9 to 10, from 10 to 11, and so on. Now I'm going to hand it back over to Krista Cox, and she's going to go through the school-wide action plan.
All right, so moving on to our school-wide plan for reading. Again, we were really trying to take the approach at Maricopa High School that it's not just on one group of teachers to help improve anything at our school. We're trying to take like this team approach. So for our reading and math plan, we're not just expecting our English teachers and our math teachers to make that difference. So with our reading plan, the 3 areas that Aiden just spoke about, citing the evidence from text, the main idea, and academic vocabulary. When we found that those were our biggest needs, when you question where that is also seen, it's in every content. Academic vocabulary is important across the board. Main idea is important in any content. So we really have a huge buy-in with all of our teachers to support all 3 of these standards in their content, and we're trying to support the teachers as much as possible so that we can get that growth, not just in their English class, but in any class that they attend. So that's kind of where we're at with our reading plan and the 3 areas that we're focusing on.
Thank you. I have to say that I'm really, really proud of the staff for coming together like this and coming up with these strategies and plans, and I owe that to professional learning communities. Having that time that's built in for us in the first Wednesday, having a leadership team that we can support, which are make up of department chairs and some other teacher leaders, that they're really coming in and looking at this stuff and developing these kind of strategies and plans. I'm looking forward to seeing what that data is. Those are lofty goals. I remember the last time, you know, we kind of look at that and go, well, what should we aspire to do? And of course, it should be 100%. And if we get that 100%, I will be here, and Scott, I will bring you too. And we will all celebrate that together, because that would be wonderful, a wonderful celebration to have. But I'm looking forward to some growth. It is no easy task, I will tell you, as I told you before. The paradigm shift from AIM standards to college and career readiness standards is huge. It's huge for kids, it's huge for teachers. And as a reminder, Arizona didn't roll this out a little at a time, right? They didn't start with kindergarten and say, well, you start this year, and then later on you'll get to high school. It's all at once. So they're working very diligently, very hard. The kids are responding, the teachers are responding, so I'm looking forward to that growth. Is there any questions? Ms. Anderson?
I have a question.
For Jen?
It'll be an easy one. How difficult is it, because you had talked about when the teachers look at data, they go back and reteach. How difficult is it for teachers to find the time to go back and reteach? Because I know there's a lot of testing going on, and you know, I look at my own child who's in high school, and I know that I just don't know when teachers have time to reteach. How are you addressing that?
Well, I can tell you how I think they are, but if you're a teacher, you're spending that time, a lot of time after school, a lot of extra time. But I'll let the teachers address that.
Okay.
It's okay.
It's a difficult question to answer. I mean, from a teacher perspective, there is a lot of time dedicated to testing. The good thing is, with the standards that we're teaching, they are very clearly delineated, and they kind of spiral on one another. So if the students aren't understanding a concept, the chances are that that standard was coming up again anyway. So you can kind of find some time in there to reteach to that particular concept, but it is difficult, and time is always a factor at the high school. And does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Kind of.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to add to that?
So it's difficult.
It's difficult.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of testing. I think there's a lot of data to review. I mean, I think we have someone in place that helps us with that, with Rick Nielsen being able to provide that for us. It's a, you know, that's a good position to have in our district, but time is difficult for teachers. I mean, when you're teaching 200 kids a day at different levels, analyzing 200 kids' data, no easy task,
Okay, I know.
right?
Yeah.
Mr. Bartle, surely there's one.
No argument here.
Anybody else? No?
I'm just going to add one thing, and I can turn it back over to Aiden, but I know doing observations that the English department and other teachers on campus, I know it's not just their department, but they kind of initiated it last year, have turned some of the data tracking over to the students, which through research proves that that helps student scores. So they have data binders that tracks all the assessments that they take, and the students are then responsible. And it was a lot of time up front. I know last year they started it and they put a lot into it, but it seems like all of the English teachers, when they're coming in for their pre-conferences and post-conferences, now that they've adapted to it, it saves them time because that responsibility is on the student. So that, from a curriculum standpoint, I would love to get more of our teachers turning that responsibility over to the students, because there just never will be enough time for the teachers to track all of that on a regular basis.
So is that information turned over to the parents? Because as a parent, I've never seen it. I would love to see it so that I can, I'm just saying, I mean, I would be happy to reinforce at home.
Absolutely.
So I'm just wondering if that can be accessible to parents.
And I know I'm going to turn that to Aiden because that's going to be more her realm.
So one thing that I know that I did personally with my students and their data folders was have those available at parent-teacher conferences. So when the students and their parents or families would come in, the students would take their folders and then we could sit down and look at that together. I can provide you with the sample if you would like of the data sheets, I mean, obviously a blank one. But I think that is a valid point. How do we communicate that information to parents? I know that the Galileo reports are sent out, or you have access to that as a parent, but how that translates as far as the student's own reflection on that, I don't know how to answer that for you, but it is something that I will think about and talk with leadership team about and see if we can figure out how to communicate that better.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think, again, as we get into this and develop it more, I think that that's part of something that should perhaps come in the report card. So if we take it through the English department and they're looking at some of that data, and that falls in line also with the ECAP, you know, papers that have kind of all that data on it, that's what needs to be sent home. I think what's really important is the efficiency of that. How are we sending it home? Are we, you know, are we doing this all by paper? Is there a digital method to do that? And those are some of the things that we need to look at.
Okay. Those are good answers. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Dr. Chestnut, do you want me to go on or do you want to do it?
I'd like to
Okay.
introduce our next speaker. Joyce Hollis is with us tonight from the Maricopa Education Foundation. For the last 6 or 8 months, we've been talking to Jeff Marchak, the president of the Maricopa Education Foundation, about the possibility of having that group help us with tax credit in 2015. So I'll turn it over to Joyce.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Dr. Chestnut, staff, community members, it's my pleasure to be here as a member of the Maricopa Education Foundation Board. As you can see, we believe that the district could use some tax credit funding help. And so obviously the objective of this strategy is to increase that funding by the end of 2015. The slogan, everybody wins. We hope the strategy would be in effect by the end of March. Now, that seems like a strange time, but remember when you do your taxes, or not, Scott, yeah, that's when you start thinking, wow, I wish I would have done some tax credits. And so we think that when the tax issues become more relevant, that's the time to strike, when the iron is hot. It's a two-pronged approach. The first one is information. I am not sure, as the board is not sure, that every taxpayer realizes that whether you rent or own your home, whether you live in the district or not, whether you have children in the district or not, you are eligible for tax credits. And those tax credits, $200 for a person filing singly, $400 filing married jointly. You know, it's a great thing. It's a one-to-one dollar thing from the state. If you have a liability, they take $200 or $400 off. If you are getting taxes back, which would really be nice, you can use the tax credit for up to 5 years. It's a win-win situation. And I can't imagine that if people know about it, they would not do it, because it is such a win-win kind of thing. So, how do we achieve this? As you can see, publicity, more publicity. Do you understand what a great deal this is for you as an Arizona state taxpayer? Advertising. A CPA who, instead of Joyce Hollis saying, oh yeah, this is great, a CPA who says, actually, I do taxes, and this is the way it truly works. Some kind of expert testimony. Information on how you can make those donations. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The other thing, of course, would be to contact every coach, every sponsor of any extracurricular activity to put the bug in those students' ears and their parents. Contact all the district parents and say, look, you're missing out. This is for your kids. Okay. The other thing I would say is that we have to make sure that people do not confuse tax credit revenue with override or bond funding. It's a completely different thing. It's a straight across transfer from the state to the school district. It has nothing to do with those other things, and that needs to be made perfectly clear. The second part of the strategy is to involve the taxpayers. We've got the information out, but we have to simplify the donation process and also incentivize donations. What we're looking at, and remember this is a strategy, we have lots of work to do, is setting up some kind of online, either an online program or working with a local bank to do like Christmas Club, you know. So in April, you decide, wow, I missed the boat. I really should have done a tax credit. There are only 8 more months in the year. But if you can do that on a monthly basis, it's $25 for $200 donation, $50 a month for a $400 donation. That may be less painful at the holiday time than writing a check for the full amount. So that's a possibility. The other thing that we're looking at is to work with the Chamber of Commerce, with their Shop Local campaign, and asking merchants to give either discounts or some type of incentives to people who have tax credit receipts. That helps the local merchants, and it certainly helps the district via the tax credit donation. We, of course, will be talking, I think that Mr. Beckett will be taking care of this, talking to other districts who have very successful tax credit funding programs to basically steal their ideas and put them into play. So in the end, you know, the taxpayers get a break, the kids get expanded extracurricular programs, and the district gets some more funding for those very same programs. So truly, everybody wins. Questions?
Sounds good.
Got to get to work.
More than last year?
Well, I think more is better, certainly more than last year. But I don't think anybody wants to put a dollar amount on it, just because we're going to be really happy if we can, you know, exceed what we've gotten in the past.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, there's lots of work to do, but there's, you know, there are avenues to explore, and I think it's time to do that. Okay?
Thank you for doing that.
Next up is Mr. Roush, and a lot of interest in tax credit opportunities this time of year, and we want to make sure that anybody watching tonight or on YouTube is reminded of all the details, because this is an excellent month to take advantage of that. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Roush.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson, members of the board, and Dr. Chestnut. We'll just kind of briefly go over MUSD tax credit and some of the law. As you can see, we've increased from 2011, 2012, 41,000 to our finished year to about 63,000. Some allowable uses for the law. It's for extracurricular activities, and so students have to be enrolled, and they have to pay a small fee to go ahead with this particular activity. Again, it's an extracurricular activity. Some of the activities are tutoring, field trips, student clubs, intramurals, academic league, character counts, academic competition, and athletics. And we have quite a few reminders. We have our own website. In January, we do payroll deduction forms distributed to all administrators and staff. December informational column published in Maricopa in the Maricopa Monitor. December, we did some advertisements placed in Maricopa newspaper and in maricopa.com. And December, we've emailed reminders sent to all staff. Just briefly, if you were wanting to make an online donation, you just go to our website. There's a tab, tax credit, on our webpage. The next page, there's several options. Pay online is one, and just push the button, tab, and then fill out the form. Pretty easy. This is RevTrack. We're also going to put PayPal on, so you'll have a couple different options to do that. And of course, as Ms. Hollis said, we're going to work with Maricopa Education Foundation to increase these. And any questions?
I have one too.
The tab that we have and the icon to click on the website, will that also go to the mobile app as well?
I don't know if it will, but I'll have to ask our IT department.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
We'll work on it.
So, Mr. Roush, as a parent, what does it look like if I've got a son who's in, let's say, band and another sport? We always pay the athletic fees and the band fees for that activity.
Yes.
So are you saying that we could have done a tax credit for that $75? We could have done $200 up front and had it go to that specific department? And can you split it and say part of it's going to go to the band fee and part of it's going to go to the baseball fee?
The question is, can you split the athletic fee? And yes, you can. So you can split that. For instance, if it's $75 and $125 of the $200 want to go to another endeavor, extracurricular activity, we sure can.
And then the coaches know that the fee's been paid, even though you're writing a tax credit?
Yes.
So I think that would be very helpful at the beginning of school, in August and even July, when we're registering our kids, that parents know that when you're writing this check for $75, oh, by the way, you can do a tax credit for the, if you know they're going to do 2 sports, they might as well do a $200 tax credit.
Correct. Yeah. And we rely right now on our administrative and secretary staff at the buildings to do that. So we'll reemphasize that with our administrative staff.
I just think that should be on the form when you're filling out all that paperwork.
It is.
Here's the fees.
I believe it is.
There is a form that comes with the athletic packet that has that exact, the tax credit, because I filled them out.
But it's,
Not every year.
but it's not included in the original. It's a separate piece of paper. I think it should be on the same sheet, that parents know that you can do a tax credit.
Okay. I know, again, I think our athletic department has provided it in the packet, but we can look at creating a form that has it, both of them on there.
Mr. Rush, do you know what the average for Arizona Public Schools on a per capita basis is for tax credit contributions?
I don't, and I don't believe that's public information.
I do know that there's a huge disparity in tax credits from some school districts to other school districts, and that we actually have legislators talking about finding ways to even that out. Whether it's the state coming in and evening it, or combining them all and distribute them equally. This is actually the leadership in the House and Senate talking about this, so there may be some changes too. I mean, we should continue to increase it, because it's only going to continue to help us, but there are some huge disparities. Some districts have almost full participation. So.
And with the foundation's help, I think our goal would be to be on the plus side of that disparity,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And I would encourage you to work with the foundation. I think just organically, it's going to grow. Just looking at the numbers in the last few years, it went from 42 to 61 to 70 with not a lot of effort, right? Not the support of the foundation and so forth. So I would encourage you guys collectively to the best you can, get some data to find out what a realistic goal is. And maybe it's a 3-year program to get to the 90th percentile or what have you, but to set an actual goal to achieve, because it's inevitable, I think, that we're going to achieve the goal if the only goal is to increase it. But there's some real opportunity there to set a benchmark and figure out what that math is and have everybody eyeing toward that objective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roush.
Welcome.
Don't go away. You're next. Okay, Mr. Roush, sale of excess property.
Yes, thank you. There's a question about our property and how we go about selling or leasing property. And I contacted attorney Curtis Chipman, and he has a memo to me, and I've put that information on a PowerPoint presentation, summarized it. Basically, in the state of Arizona, the sale of property must have an election approval. Statutory, there are some exceptions. If the value is less than $50,000, if there's an agreement with the SFB, formal adoption plan for replacement property, sell to government, state, county, city, tribal government, or exchange of property. Don't have to have that. Yes, School Facilities Board. Use of sale and lease proceeds can be used to reduce debt or taxes, and if the outstanding debt is less than 14% of the assessed valuation, for instance, our assessed valuation is over $200 million, but our debt is about 40 million, so it's less than that. So it's underneath the 14%. In some instances, and it's detailed out in the memo by Attorney Chipman, and it is a little bit complicated, as you can see if you read through that. Some instances can be used for M&O, performing calculations, but really, as he said, intuitively, in our case, it probably needs to be put in the Capital Projects Fund or the district additional assistance per his memo to us. So basically, that's the information summarized. I also provided with the memo, a copy of our map that has information of our existing schools, our boundaries, donated property, proposed donation, and a donation that's not consummated but is in the progress over at Eagle Shadow. So we have that information on this map. So, any questions?
To ask it on record. Out of all the sites that are not built on, which ones could we possibly take to the voters to sell if we didn't foresee use in them?
Well, according to our attorney, it is the sites that are listed on the map, 5 and 6, and the lakes at Rancho. There's 2 different sites there, one about 10 acres, another about 20 acres.
Those are the ones under the power lines?
Yes, and separated
Right.
by global water, yeah.
Do you have any idea what the market value is for that
I
parcel?
haven't done an analysis on the market value of those.
Mr. Roush, on these 2 sites, we would never build a school, correct? Because of the power line issues?
Oh, I'll let Superintendent Chestnut answer that question.
I don't know, I think it needs study. If this is something we want to pursue, I think we need to look into it in a serious way. I don't know the answer to that question.
It's good to have options. Any other questions for Mr. Roush?
Will this information be provided to the Budget Committee? Because they might be asking for things like this information to
Well, I
know
think
what
we'd
the
have to have
possibilities are out there.
The market value and that information
Right.
before the Budget Committee would even be able to look at it.
We can sure provide that. I want to make it clear that it has to be done by an election, so the next election cycle would be in November.
Mhm.
So quite a year away.
So you can find out the market value for us on those 2 pieces?
I can have a
Okay.
realtor assess that, analyze
Okay.
it.
Okay. That would be good information for us to have.
Mhm. Any other questions or information needed, or?
We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Don't go away.
I'm not.
Mr. Roush, review of our monthly financial report for October 2014.
Again, I've provided the monthly financial report for October and the memo, and if you have any questions regarding that information, I'm happy to answer those.
I don't have any.
No.
Anybody else? No questions from Mr. Roush? All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that brings us to the new state test for Arizona students. Mrs. Roden.
Good evening. My name is Krista Roden. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for Maricopa Unified School District. And I'm going to start tonight with a short video clip on what is replacing the Ames assessment for Arizona, and the name is Arizona Merit. Sound not on. Short video clip.
Apparently I killed the sound.
Well, what it's saying is, over the... Okay.
Sorry.
last 10 or 12 years, we have been using Ames, and Arizona Merit is coming in to replace, along with the use of the new Common Core standards and the new state assessment that will be aligned to those Common Core. Christian, we can flip it. I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Monitor and adjust. Teachers can always do that, you know, monitor and adjust. Okay. Arizona Merit Test, what is it? We'll start with how the selection process was done, and it was done by the State Board of Arizona, not the Arizona Department of Education, and it was done by a community and a committee member that included community, superintendent, public educators, and no members from the Department of Education were on that committee. The team worked with and selected the Arizona, or the American Institute of Research, and that is what created the Arizona Merit Assessment. So with that, we have the alignment to the Common Core standards, and it will be aligned and chosen from a Utah, or the SAGE Utah item bank, which works in conjunction with the AIR, the American Institute of Research Test Bank. So that is where our test bank and our new questions will come from. What does the test administration look like? It looks very similar to Ames. It will be done within a 2-week window if you are taking a paper pencil. If you are taking the online assessment, the window looks a little bit different. It is not any longer an LEA choice. Every day I check the website and there are new information posted on that website. It is going to be based on a technology survey that was done and due to the Department of Ed in October. That survey looks at the infrastructure of each district and what materials they have or technology they have in order to put the AZ Merit in place. So that little piece of information has changed since the PowerPoint was created. Another piece of information that's good for us is that we will be able to print our own labels. In January of every year, ADE uploads from our Synergy into SACE and creates those labels. So now we will be able to print anybody's label that has registered in Maricopa Unified after January 1st, which we see a couple hundred students come and go within that time frame, so that saves us a lot of time in bubbling those student test booklets. The 3rd through 8th grade Ames Math, ELA, English Language Arts, and Writing will look basically the same structure as Ames. It will be aligned to the standards, which are the Common Core standards or the Arizona College and Career Readiness standards. But the change will be in the way that high school is assessed. They will no longer be assessed on standards throughout the year. They will be assessments based on end of course results. So it will be very specific in the alignment of curriculum that is taught at each grade level. In English, you will be assessed in grades 9, 10, and 11. And our algebra 2, and geometry will be our math assessments. They will also be aligned to our course codes, so we will make sure that the course curriculum aligns to the standards and to the assessment outcomes through an AZ Merit blueprint, which those AZ Merit blueprints posted a couple weeks ago on the Arizona Department of Education website, and we have shared those with our teachers and our administrators. The spring, summer, and fall testing windows will open for AZ Merit. The summer is a new one. Ames only tested in the spring and the fall. Many years ago we used to test in the summer, but they did away with that. Another big change for AZ Merit as compared to Ames is it's not a graduation requirement. So what that looks like as far as attaching some type of letter grade, we have yet to see if they will ask if a certain percentage of that course curriculum be, or the course assessment be part of the grade. So we're waiting to see what that information looks like. I'm sure it will come soon. Computer-based assessments, we practiced last year with Park, so we got to do a run-through on what it would look like. It is a plus to do the computer-based assessment because there are many more test features that would be available. many more accommodations for our special education students, and it's less expensive to, obviously, instead of printing thousands of paper tests, to use the online opportunity. And they will look at comparative studies on what that looks like between districts that don't have the technology infrastructure in place versus the ones that have to take it paper. New test items in math. You heard the high school explain the rigor and the difference between the Arizona College and Career Readiness Standards, looking at graphing, multiple choice, more in-depth responses through English language arts. They actually have to do some typing on the assessment, multiple choice, graphing responses, editing, and all these tools will be embedded within the AZ Merit assessment. So we have got to take some practice assessments last year, and this year our teachers through our PLCs have gone and taken the practice AZ Merit, which our students will do that as well between now and the time to test. So they'll be able to navigate and learn how to use those tools, which could include a calculator or highlighting text or navigating through different text selections to respond to a writing assessment. This is what it looks like, and all of these tests are on the Arizona Department of Education website. I encourage everyone to take a look at them, to practice them, have your students and your children practice them so they can be ready to take those tests. Many online accessibilities that are a plus to taking the test online. I know it's scary because technology is always an issue. We can change the font size. We can do a text-to-speech for those children who need that type of modification. We can zoom in on text. We can do color overlays, recorded audios. There will be video clips that are embedded in the English language arts as well as the writing. So you may be doing a writing prompt and have to read some text and listen to some text and then compare those two structures within your writing response. Braille obviously will be available for students that need it, and many more accessibilities for online assessment. Online security, it looks like you have a dashboard. So when someone like your academic coach or your administrator or someone at the district level, we can get in and see where the test, wherever students are performing on the test. Like if a student gets stuck on question 17, we can actually see that student stuck. And if the system goes down, we know where to go and put that student back on. We can see if questions are skipped. So we see that dashboard as it's happening. So that's one of the items that we're excited to put into place. We also have that in place with our Galileo. So our teachers are very familiar at using that tool. Scoring, that'll be something that they work on through the summer. Test results will not be released until the spring or the fall of next year. They're estimating perhaps September. We're not really sure yet. One significant piece of information that we do need to be aware of, whether it was Smarter Balance, Park, or even Arizona Merit, the rigor within the college and career readiness standards, we are going to see a decline in our testing. The average across the states that have put this into place is approximately 30 to 40 points. If you look at the Kentucky study, it shows you the before putting the rigorous Arizona test into place, which theirs would be the AIR test, and you can see the decline between math and reading, and then the second set is, oops, I don't have a pointer, is comparing Kentucky to New York. So we are preparing our teachers. We knew that that was going to happen. By using the AIR or the Arizona Merit and the Utah Test Bank, we will be able to compare scores with all the states that are in the Utah, Florida SAGE Item Bank study. So this is really part of the Smarter Balance Consortium versus the PARC Consortium that we were working on with last year. Parent reports will show you the same information where your student is or your child is performing at. The neat thing that if you look at the trajectory on the bottom, the AIR or the Arizona Merit will keep student data in place, so as a parent you will get to see how your child is progressing through the years, and it will give you a trajectory through different test data on where your student is and how they will be ready for Arizona College and Career or life outside of high school. There is also a formative assessment that AIR has, or Arizona Merit has, that we can look at that could possibly be a substitution for Galileo. We will be looking at what that has to offer and what that alignment looks like between Arizona Merit. So that is something. Challenges, we know there's going to be challenges, of course. Some of the things that we need to be aware of, again, is the Arizona Merit's scaling or the assessment alignment will happen through the summer. Again, we will not receive those scores until September. That's a busy job for Arizona Department of Education this year in norming those tests and setting those scores for us. What do we have to look forward to? We need to know that we are going to be flexible. There are going to be glitches along the way. We're going to be preparing our students for the use of technology, using our computer labs, our Chromebooks, and getting our kids in there, being able to type on the computers, respond, keyboarding, being able to use some of the tools that are embedded within AZ Merit, the calculator tools, the highlighting tools, the comparison of text, the scrolling, the dual panes that they're all going to have to be used to navigating through. I expect the lower scores and communicate and share this information with our community and our students and our teachers. Our PLCs are a way of navigating that information for our district, and again, our teachers are already on board. They started talking about it at our November PLC. Many of them had already gotten into before we even had our PLC. November 3rd, the information was released. By November 4th and 5th, they were already on the website looking at those resources that were available. So, what questions do you have for me tonight? Go for it.
The end of course testing for the math, it was Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry.
Correct.
Are all of our students going to be able to make that?
That is what we are going to prepare them for, yes.
Okay.
And yes, they will have to take it.
They have to be
Yes.
able to take all three of those
Those are
classes.
the 3 required math courses that they have to graduate high school. Algebra 1, 2, and Geometry. So
Okay.
yes.
And are all of the students able to take the computer test now, or are we still going to have paper tests?
We don't know that for sure. Our survey that we turned in says that we are AZ Merit ready. We have enough devices, so that is where I think they'll push us to, but I can't answer that 100% confident.
And do we know when we'll know this?
No.
Okay. And my last question is, how are we communicating this and notifying the parents of all these changes?
It is on our website. It is on district and all of our schools. A notice went home with our students the first month of November, and they'll be talking about it again in January, and then we'll send that notice again at our March conferences, and just keep communicating through newsletters.
And are those newsletters translated in Spanish as well?
No, but the Arizona letter is in Spanish, so we do have a copy of the AZ letter on our website in Spanish.
Okay, because I would guess in my experience with the Hispanic community through my church, many of them don't have access to computers and don't go onto the websites because the majority of them are English-speaking English-written websites. So I just want to make sure that we reach out to those parents so that they understand what is going on as well.
We did print some of those letters in Spanish and sent those as well.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yes.
I know you already said this, but when will this first testing take place?
April.
In April.
Yes. If we are on goal to start the technology, it actually opens the last week of March.
Okay.
And the window is about 6 weeks. So I don't know what that will specifically
Right.
look like. I think that we will get the opportunity to select the window in which grades to assess at which time, if it follows the PARC framework, but I'm not sure yet.
I know there's still a lot of information
Yes.
that's not out there. Okay. And Dr. Chestnut, can we put the information, I know Mrs. Roden said that parents can go to the ADE website and take a practice test at home. When is our next district newsletter going out? Can that be like a full-page thing so that parents can know that they need to do this?
Sure, yeah, we have a newsletter next month.
Okay.
We can do that.
I think it needs to be out there. If it's in April.
It's right around the corner.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
You kind of mentioned this,
I don't know if it was called the pilot project or what, but this past year with the park, so that we would be ready for this, since the state chose the AIR or whatever that is, will that preparedness that we went through, will that still apply for this test, or?
It's the same type of technology. I took some of the tests myself so I could see. Yes, it has the same tool base. We're going to have to expose our kids to it because not all children took the practice park. So we do need to get them into the labs as much as possible, practicing and navigating through the system. So yes, and that I think is another reason that we will see a little bit of a decline, just getting used to navigating through and using those tools. So yes.
Can we
And
do a
then-
parent? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, because it seems like there's still a lot of unknown, and it's because these things haven't been determined. It's not because we don't know. Are you communicating this with the teachers as it goes?
Oh,
So they're
absolutely.
aware that, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. There's a bi-weekly, bi-monthly newsletter or update that ADE sends out, and we forward everything out, and everything that's juicy stuff, yes, we
Right.
send immediately.
Great.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Roden, is it possible for parents to take a practice test? I mean,
Yep.
can we do like some parent universities, maybe in February?
Yep.
At each one of the schools? And set up the computers that they can see, even if it's just a couple questions? I think that would be very helpful for parents.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
They take some time.
Yeah.
I'd
it's-
encourage you, take some time and look through them. They're pretty in-depth.
That's good to know. Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. All right, Dr. Chestnut, you're next. Update on the budget process.
About the budget, started that at our last governing board meeting. Wanted to bring you up to speed on where the budget committee is. And in the past 2 years, we've had the tradition of having Rick Nielsen, who helps to lead that committee, come and give a report. But we're going to do it a little differently this year, and I plan to keep this on as a work study item so we can have a little dialogue about it at each meeting. So first of all, thanks to Rick Nielsen and Jim Irving, who are co-chairs again of the Budget Committee. We have 41 people, I believe, invited. Might be 45, but a larger invitation group than last year. We had approximately 21 people at our first meeting last week. So it's a good group, good cross-section group, staff, community members, parents. And I reminded them, these are some of my slides from that first meeting, I just reminded them about our vision statement, that we're committed to student success, reminded them that we're helping, our goal and our mission statement is to help all students achieve. I reminded them of our strategic plan and our 4 goals, and the idea that we want our budget to reflect our four strategic plan goals. Reminded them that we have been through budget cuts in recent years. As 2 years ago, as we prepared for 2013-14, we came up with a plan to cut $1.128 million from our budget. But in that same year, we were able to also award a 0.75 salary step to all employees. So that's our challenge. We know that the committee, I'm sure a large number of staff members in particular on the committee, will advocate for increase in salary for next school year. That would be a normal thing to expect. And so this is kind of what we have to navigate through. One of the requests by the committee was to spend a little bit more time on last year's list that we ended up with. I had an abbreviated version that I'll come back to in a moment. I also wanted to clear up with the committee some, I think, misnomers that are out there, some myths, and that is that MUSD is top-heavy in administration, and we are not. These are the figures from the Arizona Office of the Auditor General on administrative costs per student, and we are at about $715, whereas the state average is about $745 per student. And our peer districts are higher than that. And I also reminded them about the pie chart, the very famous pie chart from Arizona Office of the Auditor General, and everything on the right side of that pie chart, the 47.4%, is classroom. Everything on the left side is non-classroom. And our goal is to spend as much money as possible on the classroom side. So every time we're able to add a teacher over and above enrollment growth, we're able to make progress on that side of the pie. But I also pointed out that the things on the left side, the non-classroom expenditures, very much support what happens in the classroom. And so I provided them with the definitions from the Arizona Office of the Auditor General. So administration is a good example. It's not just my salary and benefits, but it's other central office administrators, it's clerical and accounting staff, it's all printing costs in the district, and it's any governing board related costs, et cetera. So all of those little pieces of the pie really are multiple things that we need to have to support the classroom. We couldn't get by without counselors and speech pathologists and special ed director and librarians, et cetera. So all of those things directly support the classroom, but they are accounted for differently. So that's just a good thing to remember and refer to. Also, at our last governing board meeting, we talked about classroom space, and I updated this slide a little bit because this is something we have to keep our eyes on, and it's not necessarily a budget item, but it could be. So having enough space for our students is a huge deal. But the really important number on there, I think, anyway, is the bottom right-hand corner, and that is that we're up 435 students over a year ago. But it's interesting to look at our growth over the last 3 years. Back to November of 2011, we had 5,873 students, and we really, didn't start growing until this year, at least if you look at November. It does depend on which month you look at, but you got to pick a point, and you got to make some comparisons, and so this is a good problem to have. Also, I just wanted to point out to you, I don't think I had on this slide last time, the 4-year history for the high school. You can see that the high school has grown each year, including really the 3 years when the rest of the district was flat or even declining some, which is kind of interesting, having grown from 1,459 students in 2011 to somewhere around 1,800 today. And then the available rooms is an important issue also. How much room do we have? We've got to keep our eye on that. We have to have room for our students. And, the one question that came up was, can we close an elementary? And the shorter answer is, unless we move grade 6 back to the middle schools, we can't. Santa Cruz would be the obvious candidate to consider closing. They have 15 empty rooms. They're the least full, but they're using 25 rooms. And we don't have 25 rooms available at the elementary level right now if we reallocated those elementary students. So that's the answer to that. Some other things that I reminded the committee of, I reminded you about that our grant funds end this school year on June 30th. And so if we want to restore some of those things, we're going to have to factor that into our discussion. Also reminded you at our last meeting, and I reminded the budget committee that this is the additional additional things we funded with charter school funding that are continuing or could continue, right? They weren't just one-time costs. I mean, ideally, if you hire additional special ed teachers, you will keep those teachers unless your special ed enrollment drops, right? So those were the expenditures. I mistakenly said that number was $825,000 at our last meeting. I apologize for that. I had two things listed, one thing listed twice up there, so that was embarrassing. But $725,000 is what we added in ongoing costs. If our enrollment stayed the same, right, if we weren't growing, we'd have to consider reducing $725,000. The thing that I didn't explain well a month ago, and we need to go over with the budget committee more, is that our enrollment has grown, right? 435 students. So that's somewhere around $1.5 million additional dollars we're receiving from the state. So this is really a nice problem to have. That does give us some flexibility. Moving on. I reminded them that we talked about the possible closure of a middle school. And then the question was, do we have a real possibility of renting a space at a middle school? I contacted Menta Group, the special ed day school provider, since our last meeting. They haven't gotten back to me with a definitive answer yet, but after paying utility costs, our net income would be somewhere around $100,000. So we think if we close the middle school, there could be a savings of, assuming it was rented, of up to $320,000 or so. Okay, reviewed that with the committee. Some other things. Mr. Roush talked about this year's M&O budget compared to what he's projecting for next year. I know the board is very interested in this information. And so this year, we, in our M&O budget, should take in revenue $31,450,000. That's after some transfers, which we typically do on an annual basis. Next year, Mr. Roush is projecting an additional $400,000, $31,850,000. Mainly because of our increase in students, assuming those students remain, which it would appear that they will. That's the guess at this point in time. I shouldn't say guess, I should say an estimate. Estimate sounds better than guess. So that's good news, and that would be in our M&O budget. So there are some decisions to be made. As I mentioned, we have some good programs in place from the grant, and that funding source is going away. The question is, what, if any, of those grant programs do we want to continue? We have an additional $400,000, but we also know that there's going to be a lot of interest in a salary increase. So how do we factor that in there? So we really didn't get down to any problem solving at the last budget committee meeting, but that comes next. So we have a lot of things to wade through. We made it very clear that we want to consider being as efficient as we can, and we will consider cuts. So the other thing I mentioned to them was that there are other cost-saving things under consideration. Mr. Roush is gathering information right now on the possibility of contracting out ground services and custodial services. We have to consider different use of academic coaches, that those coaches are paid for out of Title I, and there are some other possibilities there, although because those are federal dollars, they come with strings attached, and one of the strings is we can't just take an academic coach and make that coach a third grade teacher because we have extra third grade students. It's required that they provide remedial help to students in reading and or English language arts, those two subjects. And there are a couple different ways you can do that. You can do it through coaching, you can do it through academic pullouts, et cetera. But those are the kinds of things that we're going to have to talk about. District office staffing, we always look at that each year, and I know there'll be others that the committee's going to come up with, and that'll be the focus of our next meeting that's coming up a week from tomorrow night. And I think that's it. Be glad to take any input you have or answer any questions.
Dr. Chestnut, when will you have the information on the cost savings on the contracting out the custodial and the maintenance? When do you propose that information?
Mr. Roush, do you know the answer to that?
So the budget committee will have that soon enough to use it? Okay. And then with the high school growing, obviously that's been growing pretty rapidly. Has the thought process been put in, or can you at the next meeting talk about maybe we move ninth graders to the middle school, since we've got middle schools that are half empty and we've got a high school that's full? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, that is a possibility. I mean, there's several possibilities. Okay. That's one. Another would be to create junior highs where we have ninth grade at both of our middle schools.
Right.
Another possibility would just be to add portables at the high school. But if our current growth rate continues at the high school, we will have to consider one of those things.
And then on the middle school closure, my concerns is that's going to be a short-term fix because we're growing. So is it worth the disruption? And if you're only going to save $100,000, it's something that we need to look at.
Yeah, those are the kinds of things we're going to take some more study and a few more months to figure out, but that's an important point.
Okay. I look forward to more information. Anybody else have questions for Dr. Chestnut?
What was the assumption from state revenues in your estimate, consistent from last year? But as far as what did you figure with the estimates that you came up with a 31.8 on the projected fiscal year 16 budget?
Thank you, Mrs. Roden.
We did get the inflation funding this fiscal year, so we anticipate it'll be in place for next fiscal year. So that was the main reason for the increase, along with the enrollment growth.
So, to follow up on Mr. Bartle's question, you did factor in, I know you can't count on it because the legislature has to vote the budget in May. You did factor in a potential 1.4% inflationary increase, but you didn't factor in anything in regards to the lawsuit, correct?
No.
Okay.
That would be great, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Be a good problem to have.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Chestnut. And I like having updates like that on information. I think that will be very helpful because then we can formulate more questions. Okay, that brings us to our consent agenda. Do I have any motions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our consent agenda is approved. Okay, action items. 7A, discussion and possible approval of the expense voucher for in Maricopa.
President Anderson, this deals with my company, so I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bartle. Okay, any discussion or motions for item 7A?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mr. Bartle, you can come back. And I hope you ordered pizza. All right, that brings us to 7B. Discussion and possible approval of the special governing meeting minutes from October 14th. Let's see, one of these I need to recuse myself. Which one is it? It's further down for November 12th. Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible approval of the October 22nd.
Yeah, he abstained.
Oh, you abstained? Okay. I didn't hear you. Discussion and possible approval of the October 22nd regular governing board minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
One abstention.
And one abstention. Okay. Discussion on possible approval of the November 12th, 2014 regular governing board minutes, and I need to recuse myself because I was absent from that meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And one abstention. Me. Thank you. All right, 7E. Are you ready? Discussion and possible approval of the personnel schedule, which includes resignations, reclassifications, terminations, non-renewals, new position requests, employment ratifications, stipends, leave of absence, and other administrative actions.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. You have the personnel schedule in front of you tonight. I'll take any of your questions at this time.
I just have one question. Employee number 1, is there going to be a contract assessment on that?
There will not be a contract assessment on that, no.
Okay. That's my only question. Any other questions for Mr. Beckett? No? Any other, then do we have any motions?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Beckett.
Thank you.
All right, item 7F. Do I have a motion to go into open up our public notice hearing for the fiscal year 2014-2015 budget revision?
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are now in our public notice for the hearing for the budget, which means if there's any comment from the public, which they're all clamoring to get to the front.
You can close the hearing.
All right, seeing that there are no public comments, we'll close the public hearing. That brings us to 7G, discussion and possible approval of the fiscal year 2014-2015 budget revision. Any discussion or motions?
Move to approve.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, do I have a motion to approve to go into executive session for the discussion and consideration of the superintendent's evaluation?
Motion to go into executive session.
Okay, I've got a motion
Second?
and a second. Thank you, Mr. Bartle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we will now convene into executive session. Those of you that stuck around, thank you very much. Have a wonderful holiday. Safe New Year's.